this week. Barbara Platt-Usher, BBC News, Washington.
Well, Gabriel Sterling, the election official from Georgia who you saw there, spoke out after one of his staff received death threats over a viral video showing him transferring a report to a computer. He spoke to the BBC's Katty Kay and Christian Fraser about why his anger boiled over.
I found out about it an hour and a half before the press conference that was already scheduled. And when I heard about the situation with the young contractor, who was simply a young man who was there doing the work that tens of thousands of people do around the hundreds of thousands of people do around the country to run elections. This is a young man who took a job just a few weeks ago. I talked to Dominion, who's the voting contractor, and they said he's one of the better techs they have. He was doing his job, and now he's got people threatening him with treason and execution. At that point, I was pretty much done. I mean, the secretary ran for office. You expect some level of this. I put myself out there to explain things in the media. You expect some level of, I've had police protection outside my house for a couple of weeks now. But this was a kid with a family who just had a job, and it was wrong. And I'm just, the president needs to realize his words have consequences. They can be good, they can be damaging. In this case, they're damaging. And instead of taking a step back and taking responsibility, he's doubling down.
Okay, so just talking of the president's words, just in the last few minutes, the president has tweeted out a video statement of himself addressing your concerns. Let's just take a quick listen.
As president, I have no higher duty than to defend the laws and the Constitution of the United States. That is why I am determined to protect our election system, which is now under coordinated assault and siege.
Mr. Sterling, is that the kind of rowback that you would like to see from the president?
The assault and siege is not coming from outside actors. It's essentially coming from former members of his legal team, people here in Georgia today, and it's just wrong. And he needs to understand that his words have consequences, and continuing to stoke this idea that there is some path to victory through some giant, vast conspiracy is, to put it mildly, unhelpful.
Gabriel Sterling, the election official from Georgia, who, it should be remembered, is a Republican, speaking to Katty and to Christian. Let's go live to our Washington correspondent, Nomia Iqbal. Nomia, the president still seems to be encouraging millions of his voters to live in a kind of alternate reality. Is there any sense at all the tide may now, at least among Republicans, be turning against him slightly?
To a certain extent, and I don't think it's surprising that Mr. Sterling hit out at Mr. Trump in this way. As he said there, there's been a sustained assault by the president on Georgia's election process, and this is all because Donald Trump can't accept that he lost. He's had enough time to prove all the fraud that he claims happened during the election. He's provided none. In fact, all of his court cases are pretty much being thrown out of court, left, right and centre. And he's lashed out at Republican officials, as we saw in that report, the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and the Governor, Brian Kemp, who are staunch Republicans. They are big Trump supporters, but they have said, Mr. President, you need to accept that you lost. But he still does have some support amongst Republicans, particularly the two senators in Georgia, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, who are big supporters of his. They've been to his rallies. They've not entirely come out and condemned the divisive rhetoric. And why would they? Because they really, really want to win their Senate seats. Their Senate seats are up for grabs, and Donald Trump is still hugely popular in America, in Georgia, even though he didn't win the state. And they are hoping to use that popularity to try and win those seats when the very important Georgia Senate runoffs happen in January.
Yes, and in the course of doing all that, the president is encouraging millions of people to distrust the democratic process. Going to Georgia, as you say, Georgia now crucial to control of the Senate.
That's right. The Senate will ultimately determine just how powerful Joe Biden's presidency will be when he takes office on January the 20th. At the moment, the Senate is split. There are 48 Democrats and 50 Republicans. And if Democrats win the two seats, then it'll be easier for them to pass through a lot of bills on a vast range of issues such as climate change and COVID-19 response and gun control. Obviously, if the Republicans win, then it will make life much harder for Joe Biden, certainly in his first 2 years. And it's interesting because you mentioned there about Trump constantly kind of undermining the process of the election, there is some concern amongst Republicans that his rhetoric could backfire and that a lot of his supporters might not turn out and vote, particularly in Georgia, which means that it could inadvertently, the victory could be handed to the Democrats come January.
Nomia, thank you very much for that. Thanks to you for being with us. Stay with us if you can on BBC News. There is much more to come, including